Yeah, I'll manage all the intakes.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I didn't get my little recording warning, but I think it's on now. So that's my start. Hey, everyone, it's Mick Levinskas from Climate Salad. We love to host a whole lot of different webinars on different things, helping climate tech founders, people who are investing in the space and understanding the space, and been following Neerav for a while in terms of talking about everything electrifying, or electrifying everything, if I get his tagline exactly right. And it was interesting. Again, I'm just dealing with like dozens of these conversations around batteries and thinking about it for myself. And it's a really complicated live discussion. So I thought I would bring Neerav in for a conversation, and who better to have a chat to him than John from Rewiring Australia. Before we start, just a quick acknowledgement of country, acknowledging again our first innovators, and would like to show respect for elders past and present. Um, what we're going to do here is I think Nero's going to share some content. John and Nero are going to have a chat. And if you've got any questions, just throw them into the chat. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to John to kick off. Thanks, John.
Great. Thanks, Mick.
Thanks, Vic.
Afternoon, everyone. As Mick said, I'm John Bushland. I'm from Rewiring Australia. My role at Rewiring Australia is as the pilot operations manager for the Electrify 2515 pilot, which is down here in Thirroul. So we are undertaking an experiment essentially to electrify 500 houses within the postcode of 2515 as quickly as possible, and that includes batteries as well. So I've spent the last 5 6 months talking with our community about batteries, and yeah, there's a lot to unpack, which we've got the expertise of Neerav here today. Um, so might hand over to Nero for a introduction as well, and then really the agenda for today is to look at the home battery technology, what's driving or slowing adoption rates, and then where we think government policy can actually help, bring everybody along the journey. And we want to leave plenty of time for Q&A. So please throw your questions into the chat as we go, and we'll either answer them on the way or have a chat at the end. So Nirav, did you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone. I've got a long history as a technology journalist, and that's how I met Mick because he's been in the venture capital and supporting small startups in the tech field for a long time. And I've more recently, in the last few years, I segued into covering sustainable homes and electric transport, which you can see behind me. That's my electric car, a little EV hatchback because just everyone has kept asking me over and over again about all these questions. And I thought it'd be more useful to people to communicate this information that I've learnt from researching the topic and talking with people in industry to a mass audience rather than just one person over and over and over again.
And so that's great way to jump in. Nirav, I guess from a battery technology point of view, what is the most common question you're getting at the moment around, what battery should I buy and what is the features to look for when you're buying a battery?
Yeah, there are lots of different aspects to consider, John. Uh, One of the ones which I was chatting with my solar installer the other day is, are you even allowed to have one in the first place? Because the electricity grid owner for different parts of Australia may have an inverter limit for your house or your region or your street. And in my case, I'm hoping to get a home battery, but my installer's put a application into Osgrid to ask if I can get, I've already got an 8 kilowatt solar inverter, and Osgrid looks at the total amount of inverters you've got at your house, and I'm looking to get a 6 kilowatt battery inverter. So they've got to give the tick, costs a little bit of money to apply, and we'll see what they say. It's not a guaranteed yes. So before you get your hopes up, make sure you're even allowed to get one in the first place. Other parts of Australia have no limits whatsoever, or even lower limits, like maybe 5 kilowatts instead. So yeah, something to bear in mind. And then there are loads of rules for safety about where you're allowed to install them. You're not allowed to just plonk a battery anywhere you want. For example, you're not allowed to put it inside your house, not in livable areas. You can put it in a garage, but then you have to have a certain amount of space around it. And something a lot of homeowners don't like is you have to have bollards so that someone who's not paying attention doesn't run into the battery and cause huge damage and potentially a fire. So yeah, there's heaps of safety issues. Um, Another issue that a lot of people don't think about is wherever the legally allowed areas are in your house to install a battery or outside or in a garage, try and choose the coolest location. So if you've got a flat wall facing west or north, in most parts of Australia, that's going to get really hot during summer and potentially other parts of the year as well. And toasting your battery is a good way to reduce its lifespan and how efficiently it works. If at all possible, try and install a battery facing south on a south wall or an east wall. Or if you do have to put it in the north or west, you'll probably have to try and get some kind of shelter shed or cover to take some of the heat load off. Are those the kind of questions you've been discussing with people with Electrify in your area initially?
Yeah, so your first point is spot on. So one of our partners in the project is Endeavour Energy. So what the one of the main reasons they want to get involved in this is so that they can, yeah, look at that kind of substation level, street level, um, transformer level impact on the grid. So yeah, as you said, there's only so much energy that can move between the poles and wires. So if all the solar and all the batteries in the area end up on one street talking to one transformer, that's gonna be a problem. At the moment, it's definitely not a problem, but it's something they need to manage for and plan for in the future. Um, and then to your point around location, yeah, these are all the kind of challenges that people are uncovering as they retrofit. Not just the batteries are retrofit, but hot water systems are challenging as well. Cooktops have been quite challenging. And someone on the chat has just raised a question around insurance as well. So happy to talk to that. I came from insurance world before I joined
Okay.
Rewiring Australia. So yeah, look, I think that the risk is super low. There's a great organisation out there called EV Firesafe, who has done a lot of research on the sort of risks of EV batteries. Um, we have asked them, and we're going to hopefully do work in the future around similar research for the home batteries. But of course, check your product disclosure statement. But just like a toaster or another appliance in your house, could cause a fire, it should be covered under your insurance. A battery wouldn't be treated as any sort of different risk from an insurance point of view.
Yeah. Good point about risks, just in general, obviously not speaking to anyone's particular question, but the two biggest ways you can do to reduce the risk of any issues, choose a quality installer. Personally, everyone's view is different. I like owner-operated businesses, ones who don't just use the cheapest subcontractor. Someone who actually owns and runs a business will come and do it themselves, or at least manage the process and oversee it and audit their employees' work. I think generally you find much better quality of work that way. It usually won't be the cheapest, but it'll definitely be much higher quality. And then the second thing, the technology in most home batteries these days is LFP battery chemistry, which some people might have heard of also being used in a lot of electric cars. The previous tech in home batteries was quite safe for fires and other issues, but LFP is even more safe again. And yeah, so those are the two things. Quality installer, not necessarily the cheapest, and most new home batteries are even safer than the previously quite safe technology that was being used.
Yeah, that's a question that's come through is around that technology advancement. So yeah, the question is, should you buy a battery now, or is there a big wave of fancy new batteries coming soon? And I think that leads in nicely to the sort of vehicle to grid question around, how quickly will this new world come where you can plug your car in to be your home battery. So do you want to talk to a bit about your experience and your learnings on
Yeah,
that in the last few weeks,
that's
Neerav?
a good question. Great question. The answer is nobody knows unless one of us is secretly the next Doctor Who, because as we all know, if we're Doctor Who fans, they're about to change into a new actor. Um, we don't have a TARDIS. We're not Doctor Who. We don't know. All I do know is vehicle to grid has been promised as coming soon in 2022 and in 2023 and in 2024 and now in 2025. And it is available in small ways in some places around the world. In Australia, though, I honestly can't see it being available for at least a few more years at scale. And there will be rules. Like sorry, there's currently news in the UK that a particular electricity provider and a particular EV, it broke today, and a particular AC EV charger, which actually I reviewed on my channel last week. They were at the EV Infrastructure Summit. It's called Zaptec, and it has V2G compatibility for plug your own cable in type charger. Anyway, they have a program coming up, but it's not like instant free money falling from the sky, which is what I think some people think vehicle to grid is. There are lots of rules. So for that program, from memory, you have to plug your car in at least X amount of times per month. It has to be for X amount of hours each time, I think at least 12 hours. And then if you tick all of those boxes and jump through all the hoops, then you'll get payoff and financial dividend. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary. It feels like it's imminent. It does, there's a lot of talk, but I think the rules are written from a technical point of view. Now the products need to come from the bidirectional chargers, which there are a few on the market now. The SIG Energy, and also Red Earth. There's also Vehicle to Grid Australia, which works with the CHAdeMO. So if you do, our CEO Francis I laughed at him for years. He's got a plug-in Outlander. But if he wanted to, he could probably get the Equator Grid before most of us. So, but yeah, it's definitely a don't sort of hold off buying the
Don't hold your
battery.
breath. All of
Yeah,
those ones you just mentioned, those vehicle to grid standalone chargers or modules, like the SIG Energy vehicle to grid module, they're well above $5,000. Sometimes by the time you install them and get them done with everything else, they'll be maybe 10 grand. That's a lot of money to get back over time if you get it back at all.
yeah, yeah. I keep saying we're in the early days of the plasma TV prices.
Mhm.
If anyone bought a $10,000 plasma TV in the 2000s. Um, so I guess moving on to
Yeah,
the
but
safe.
also in terms of should you buy a battery now or should you buy a battery later, something that might help people is common question I get asked is, should I buy a big slab battery like your Tesla Powerwall that's just one piece? They attach it, the Sparky attaches it to the wall or on a floor plate, or should I get the new style of modular battery? Personally, I think the modular batteries are much more sensible option because they think of it like Lego bricks, and each Lego brick is a battery extra capacity. So you can get however much you can afford now, and if you want to get more in a year or two because you suddenly have, you've got a raise at work or whatever, you can add more then. So you don't need to worry so much about buying huge chunks of battery in one piece as much.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and it lets you get started now and then perhaps plug other technology in later. So if that vehicle to grid piece does come, you know, that's kind of my perfect scenario, I think, where I've got a 5 kilowatt battery at home, but then when the car comes home, plug that in and it expands, to the car's battery as well. So yeah, I think that lets people start saving now and start doing
Yeah,
purchasing now, but sort of future proofing it a bit as well.
yeah. From
Yeah.
memory, the Smart Energy Council released information a while ago saying that I think there's a misunderstanding that people think, oh, I'll get a battery and then I'll never have an electricity bill again. The economics of that doesn't usually make a huge amount of sense because your first battery module is the one you get the best return on investment in because you're using it a lot. Second one, you use a bit less. Third one, a bit less. Fourth, fifth, sixth. There's people getting like 8, 10 battery modules, like huge amounts. By the time you get to those, you're not using that extra capacity that much. Personally, I think do your sums, and it could quite well be a better option to reduce that battery by a bit. Maybe don't get 30, get 20 kilowatt hours, and instead replace your hot water with a hot water heat pump. There are federal incentives, and some states as well are quite generous, like Victoria has a nice incentive. You could get an induction cooktop. You could get you could cut off your gas if your cooktop and your hot water are the only gas things you have left, for example, and then never have to pay a gas connection daily rate again. So yeah, you've got an X amount of money, you've got opportunity cost. If you spend all of it on the size of a battery that's as big as my EV parked outside, you're reducing your chance of spending on any other electrification technologies that could actually reduce your bills for your life overall more effectively.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and there's quite a lot of people who have just built brand new houses that have put batteries on and still have gas cooktops and gas hot
Mm,
water because of the building code. And again, back to our project here, that's kind of the whole intention is to get rid of that gas daily fee, and then start using your energy when you're making it. So shift all of that work, that charging during the day, shift all that hot water top up during the day, and then time shift your excess solar to nighttime using your battery. So it kind of is the last thing that you should be looking at if you've still got gas. Um, so the next question, and a nice sort of lead on to virtual power plants. So in terms of
mm,
what governments are doing, great news. We've got the cheap home battery scheme kicking off in about a week. Um, so that's been an extension of the SRES. So it's basically for every kilowatt you put in, you're going to be able to get it's around about 30% off your home battery. And so in New South Wales, not too sure where people are calling in from, but we did also have a state discount scheme, which I think everybody was hoping we could double dip. And they've been a little bit crafty and allowed the rebate for the virtual power plant in New South Wales to continue. I think it's now a cashback offer, but you do need to join a virtual power plant. So, Neerav, did you want to sort of share your thoughts on the pros and cons of virtual power plants and how that might look?
sure. Now, virtual power plant sounds really nerdy. Basically, what it means is if you don't have one, you control how your battery works. You can just set it on autopilot and let the battery default settings do their stuff. Or you can sit there like some of my friends, just obsessively going, "Ooh, oh my God, electricity is cheap now. Let's import. Ooh, this is really expensive. Let's use it up." Whatever. Whatever floats your boat. That pay as much attention or little as attention to it as you want, but it's your battery in your control. With a VPP, you're giving some, or actually sometimes a lot of control to perhaps your energy provider like Origin or a government VPP like there are some in WA, um, or there's a more market kind of VPP like Amber, and they all have more or less different levels of risk. And there's also Evergen. There's tons of different VPPs on the market, some of which are available in parts of Australia and some that are not. But in essence, you are giving away some of your control to them. They're trying to make some money from your battery, and the promise from them is that you'll make some money potentially as well. And governments are trying to get you to sign up for these virtual power plants in some cases, in some states, by giving incentives. WA has an incentive, New South Wales has an incentive. You've got to figure out whether you want to give some or all of control of your battery to a third party. Will they use it in the way that suits you? you've got to read those rules really carefully and not just look at the initial handout. There's a lot of skepticism because unfortunately the state and federal governments didn't really coordinate really well. And for an industry, electricity industry, for better or for worse, doesn't have a huge trust rating in Australia. Having all that kind of shambolic up and down, yes and no, rebates, no rebates, changing rules at the last second means most of my viewers to my YouTube channel don't like VPPs, apart from some who like Amber, which is a bit like day trading on shares because it means instead of having a fixed electricity price like your standard electricity provider, you get a completely variable electricity price depending on what the national electricity market has. It could be really high, it could be really low, and you've got to sit there and sell, buy, sell, buy, sell, like a share trader movie. Yeah, which has its risks and rewards. There's no guarantee you'll make lots of profits. Some people do, some people don't, and they end up with a huge bill.
Yeah, and I think you've said in one of your recent videos too, it's definitely not something to rely on to pay your battery off in that kind
No,
of short term. You know, the idea of these home batteries and you know the grid batteries, community batteries is to flatten out these prices and avoid those sort of gas peakers having to come on. So from Rewiring Australia, we've got a recent report that we've done the numbers on, and it's around about $1,000 a year you can save for an average household. So you know that's two and a half people with two cars, and that's just if you keep your battery, sorry, keep your energy for yourself, and then it's over and above that is if you joined a VPP and you're actually trading. So it's almost a little bit of a most other appliances, especially your vehicles, can save you quite a lot. So the $1,000 a year is almost a bit of a break even after 10 years. So. But you do get the energy resilience as well. So you've got your blackout protection, which again, back to that installer discussion, these are some of the top questions. And I'm sure, Neerav, you can talk to your, I think, top
really great
eight
point there,
things you wanted to
John.
make sure people didn't
Yeah,
mistakes made.
is people think I've got a home battery. That means if there's a power cut because a tree falls down outside and cuts off my power line, I'm all good. I can use up the capacity of my battery that's left. There are two catches with that. If you're selling to a VPP, they've got control of your battery. They may have used up your battery that day and you might have nothing left. Tough luck, sorry. Or not every home battery has home backup facility. You have to ask for that specifically. If it's not written down in the contract, don't do verbal. Everything has to be written down with your solar and battery installer to say that you have a battery that has home backup. And then detail of that, because a lot of houses have, unfortunately, in Australia, developers like to use a somewhat lazy approach of chucking in huge ducted air conditioning systems to make up for the fact that the houses they build are full of gaps and cracks and holes everywhere. So more like a really expensive tent than a house, in my opinion. But anyway, so those ducted air cons suck up a lot of electricity. Um, if you have your battery connected to back up the whole house, you could draw that down really fast in the middle of summer or midwinter when you're cranking that reverse cycle air conditioner. I would personally suggest, and this is what I'm going to do, is get one specific circuit of your power board backed up. Um, fridge is the one that makes most sense, and probably kitchen lights and microwave maybe. So you can keep your food safe, you can still cook something, and you can still see. And then you hope that Osgrid or Endeavour or whoever your grid provider is can fix the problem outside and get you reconnected in time without sucking your battery dry really fast and then being in the same blackout situation as your neighbors.
Yeah, that's really, really great point. I still remember one of the first chats I had when I moved into this role was somebody telling me I'm not getting a battery because I can't run my air conditioner. And I thought it's kind of not the point, but
Yeah.
let's everybody comes at this at a different level of what they expect. Okay, well, we've only got a few more minutes left. Please jump in if you've got any final questions or topics you'd like us to cover. There was one question we hadn't answered, which I can touch on again from our pilot, which is will the utilities accept export limit settings to allow more total inverter capacity to be installed? So yeah, that's exactly what Endeavour is looking at, and I think actually already implemented recently. So I think they had a 5 kilowatt export limit, which they've now moved to 10. And yeah, we had a really great presentation from Endeavour Energy just on exactly the impacts that that's brought already. Just be able to remove that rule, which was set in place a very long time ago before this sort of rooftop solar and transition had started. And the idea of the pilot is to push that really hard in this substation so that we can learn really quickly. Anything else from you,
I think
Neerav,
that's
before we?
yeah, right on time. Neera's got hours and hours of videos to watch, and obviously Rewiring Australia's got lots of great content. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think definitely the intermittency of solar and wind as we moved transition towards more renewables and away from fossil fuels. I think obviously batteries are going to play a really really key role, and see that developing as an industry. And also, it's interesting how there's sort of global geopolitical questions around batteries, and there's also the absolute realities of getting one at home and will it charge your fridge in a blackout. I think that's it's really interesting. And I think the modular, I think where you look at data centers and where the server model went rather against mainframes, I think is a really good thing to think about in terms of batteries and that modular approach. I think is absolutely going to be right. So it's going to be very interesting to see. Huge thanks to both of you. Thanks so much for sharing. Really, really appreciate it. Thanks
Thank you.
everyone for joining. And yeah, let's see how the batteries develop. I'm definitely not a Doctor Who fan enough to know where batteries are going to go. But yeah, great discussion, team. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Mick. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. See you for the next webinar.